All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. Now, I'm going to do a video right now about Conor McGregor, who Conor should 100% fight in his comeback fight, because there was not an answer to that prior to UFC 271, and there is now. Like, now there is just a straight up answer. This is who he should fight for sure, and I'll explain exactly why. Now, before I do that, though, I need to explain, if I'm going to make a statement like that, where like there's a correct answer for who he should fight, I need to explain the parameters that I'm working inside of, the lens that I'm looking at this through. And it's the only one that matters. It's the way the UFC looks at things, okay? So I'm taking the rules that I know the UFC operates on in terms of matchmaking, and I am going to slide this person in there. Now, I don't know if necessarily I'm going to be the first person. As a matter of fact, I know I'm not the first person to think of it, because someone said it to me in my live stream last night, and I thought about it, triangulated it, and was like, oh my gosh. That is an exceptional idea. Then I started doing research all over the internet. I started watching some things. I was like, oh my God, this is better than I thought. So just to lay this out, okay? The UFC is not Major League Baseball. Look at that. I'm educating everyone, dude. It's not Major League Baseball. They're all, damn. You know, I got recommended this Jesse on Fire channel. I didn't realize he's going to be dropping knowledge like that. The UFC's not like Major League Baseball. I guess I can just turn the video off because now I know everything about the business. It's not like the NFL either. Oh, damn. Okay, there's no hierarchy. There's no like structured way that you get to a championship. That's not how this works, okay? The UFC, at the end of the day, puts on fights that people will pay to see. End of story. Now, that might seem obvious to you guys. Like, that might seem obvious, like, at first, like, well, yeah, of course. They put together the big fights. Right, of course. But do you think it's just that simple? Like, you think there's no strategy to it? How you set people up to be people that people will pay to see? You think that, like, after 20 some odd years of doing this, there isn't a formula to creating that type of hype for people? Because there is, okay? There is. Now, people who watch my channel very consistently will probably be able to kind of explain this to other people better than, you know, a person who doesn't, because I talk about it literally all the time. But there are a handful of ways where you can become a potential headline, sellout, you know, huge pay-per-view person. Almost in every single example, you have to beat someone who is of that caliber also. Almost always. There are a few exceptions, but usually to become that big, you need to beat someone that big. And maybe they're on their way out or whatever. But I can give you example after example after example of that, right? How did Nate Diaz blow up? He beat Conor McGregor. Finished him, got on the mic, boom. I'm not surprised, motherfuckers. And everybody's like, oh shit. And even the UFC didn't realize how big of a star he was until he came back because he took so long. Masvidal, all that. Like, I'm not even going to do, I just did this in the Tai Tuivasa video. Look at that, I pronounced his name right. But through that lens, you also need to understand that when Conor fights, okay, there are no decisions made about Conor they have meetings for days about Conor, because he is your most valuable property. You have to be absolutely surgical with your strategy with Conor, okay? Now, up until now, right? Up until right this moment, the strategy with Conor has been simple, right? Put him in there with someone you think he can beat that is most likely to set him up for a title shot. Because ultimately, your best case scenario, if you're the UFC, right, is to have big star fighting for the belt. That's how you get these enormous blowout number fights, right? Khabib versus Conor, especially if they have a problem with each other, right? Like, that's your absolute best case scenario. And you can look at how they managed the Colby and Masvidal situation, which now in hindsight, as soon as they canceled Masvidal versus Leon, the second that they canceled Masvidal versus Leon, that validated that everything that I had said all along was correct, which was every time that either Masvidal or Colby fought Kamaru Usman, if one of them would have won, the next fight would have been against each other, okay? But Kamaru Usman was too good. He beat Colby twice. He beat Masvidal twice, okay? The entire reason that they both got two shots at him was because they were trying to set up Colby versus Masvidal, blood feud for the title, okay? That is the ultimate endgame goal. What I'm saying now is that in the last handful of years, you can actually, if you really think about it, you can recognize there's an even better scenario I mean, not necessarily better than the blockbuster fight, but almost as good, which is if you can create a star that will sell no matter what. Like, no matter who you put them in there with, they're going to do 1 million pay-per-views. You have a handful of guys like that. Masvidal, okay? Diaz, Conor. If you could create another one of those guys who's a big enough star who will literally add 500 to 700,000 pay-per-views just by being on the fucking card, that is your best case scenario. That is your most valuable asset. It doesn't matter who they fight, doesn't matter what they do. If you put them on the card, the pay-per-views go through the roof. That's your best case scenario, right? So here's the thing. Now you consider that when you're thinking about Conor, because you have conflicting interests right here, right? Normally you have multiple interests, right? Your still best case scenario is Conor McGregor winning a couple fights, fighting for the title. That is your best case scenario. And then best case is Conor winning the title, like if you're the UFC, right? But at the end of the day, the one thing the UFC has never done, and you could say this absolutely definitively, the UFC sets the table and then they hope that things work out the way they want them to. They do not rig fights. They don't. And you know that because the last however many times that they've wanted someone to win, they always fucking lose. Like, the UFC is on the coldest streak ever. Like, not ever, I don't know about ever, but like they are on a streak of losses in terms of they want this person to win to set up this fight. Now, you guys might not be aware of what they're doing. I am, okay? Like, I know exactly who they want to win not in every single fight, but in specific fights that would set up super fights. And their guy keeps on losing. Both Colby fights against Kamaru, both times Masvidal lost to Kamaru. Conor against Dustin, both times. Oh, God, there's another one too. Like, all of those, the UFC's rooting for the other guy because it would have set up a super fight, okay? Gone over Francis, right? Like, all just things like the UFC, every time they really have a vested interest lately, their guy is not winning. But when it comes to Conor now, you have to start entertaining, right? You have no choice. You have to entertain that maybe he doesn't have what it takes to win the title again. Now, I'm not saying that he doesn't, okay? Especially because in that Dustin fight, again, I will reframe that, okay? Conor, in the first minute, looked solid. He looked like he was kicking like a mule. Then whatever happened, whether he kicked Dustin's knee or whatever he did, but you have to consider that when he pulled for that guillotine, he might have, I would say almost certainly knew his ankle was broken. Because look at how it happened. He pulls for the guillotine. Nothing happens to his leg in between then and now. He stands up. He steps back, and his leg folds in half, right? So there's a high probability that something that he did finished that fracture that he had to have been working on. And so he knew he was hurt. So you really don't even have anything to go on from that fight, okay? I'm just saying, I'm not saying he would have won, he wouldn't have won, whatever. I'm just saying you just don't know where he's really at. But at the end of the day, he lost to Dustin twice. So you just, bottom line, you can't just bank on if we put the right matchups in front of Conor, he'll get a title shot again. Like, you can't bank on that anymore. So you have to start thinking about secondary value that you can get out of that fight, right? So you have a couple things that you can do there, right? You can set someone up to be like in normal times, what you would do is you would just set up the person that most likely gives one of them a title shot. So Chandler would make perfect sense, right? If Chandler beats Conor, you could put Chandler in a title shot, or at the very least put him in a title eliminator right after that fight. And Chandler is someone they want to win the title because he's awesome on the mic. He'll be incredibly marketable. People are like, I don't get it, man. Chandler, it's not like he sold a bunch of pay-per-views. Okay, right. But like, that doesn't mean he's not if you have a trained eye, like, you know who's going to be marketable. Okay. Like, and people aren't there are very few people who just come in and immediately are just selling. That's not how it works. That's just not how it works. Okay? You have to win some fights to get up there. Would Israel Adesanya have added 300,000 pay-per-views in his third fight in the UFC? Of course not. Of course not. You got to work your way up and then have an inciting incident, right? So in this case, like I would say, you do Chandler or you do, one of the other guys that you think is really marketable, that it would be a benefit to give them a win if they're able to beat Conor. But you also don't want to put someone in there that is, a bad matchup for Conor. Okay. So in this case, you have the opportunity to create a Nate Diaz or a George Masvidal. Okay. It's I've never I've actually never seen this where I was sure about that before, except for right now. And that's Bobby Green, dude. If you put Conor in there with Bobby Green, here's the thing. You do have to accept that if Conor beats Bobby Green, that's a tough sell to put him in there for an immediate title shot. But if Conor wins one fight, the only way you could justify a title shot is if you put him in there with an absolute killer right now. And that doesn't seem like the right thing to do anyway, right? Like, who are you going to put him in there with that you could justify an immediate title shot, right? And, so Conor is most likely 2 fights from a title shot anyway. Bobby Green, the buildup to that fight will be unreal. And here's the thing, dude. Bobby Green is the Black Nate Diaz, okay? And I'll tell you exactly why I said that. Like, I hadn't even thought about that, dude. Like, I literally had not even thought about that until when someone said it to me, and I just watched him in person. He's crazy charismatic. I mean, I don't know how it came off on TV, but that guy's a fucking star, dude. Like, that guy is a fucking star. A potential superstar that can carry it on his own. If he had a huge buildup with Conor and he beat him, that guy is Nate. He'll draw like Nate Diaz. He'll draw like Masvidal. Seriously. Like, I'm serious. And if you think I'm wrong about that, then let me just explain this. How big of a draw was Nate Diaz before the Conor fight? Not very big, right? Not very big. How big was Masvidal before the Darren Till fight? Or actually, not even just if he wasn't fighting Ben Askren before the Ben Askren fight, how big of a draw was Masvidal? A little bit, because he had just, everybody knew him and he had just knocked out Darren Till. But prior to the Darren Till fight, him and Nate Diaz, they were Bobby Green level, dude. And then that was their inciting incident. I'm telling you, I'm right about this. If you put Bobby Green in there and he beats Conor, like beats him decisively, or they have like a war, you might even end up with your best case scenario where they have a war, Conor wins and Bobby Green becomes a star anyway. But with that, it's a win-win. Okay, because that's the thing. When you're gonna leverage your most valuable asset, the best case scenario is if you put him in there where no matter who wins, you still win. If you put him in there with someone like, I don't know. If you put him in there with there's lots of examples where if he loses, it's like, okay, well, now we've got this guy, whatever. But it's not the same as like, we just minted a new Nate Diaz, which is exactly what you'll have with Bobby Green. Exactly what you'll have with Bobby Green. So you either get a win for Conor or you mint a new Nate Diaz. Okay. Now, again, I hadn't even realized why, I hadn't even put together, I was he's the Black Nate Diaz until I watched his post-fight interview from UFC 271. And I have a feeling, like, I'm planning to put it in this video, but if I forget, or if I upload it and it demonetizes my video, which is extraordinarily likely, I need you guys to go and YouTube Bobby Green UFC 271 post-fight speech, and then remember exactly what I said. Dude, if you took a Nate Diaz, like if you green screened Nate Diaz on top of him, of them walking out, you would have no idea, like, or if you just like blanked out how, like, it was just like 2 white figures and you just looked at their body language, indistinguishable, dude. Absolutely indistinguishable. And he's not like trying to do a Nate Diaz impersonation. They're the same person, man. Like, he is a superstar in the waiting. A superstar in the waiting. You get that, you give him Conor, and you are coming out best case scenario either way. Because if Conor loses to Bobby Green, dude, he's not gonna win the title anyway. You know what I mean? And if you're gonna find out that Conor's not gonna win a title, mint a new Nate Diaz on his way to that realization. It's an absolute no-brainer. That is the fight. That's the fight. Okay? That is the fight. Now, if Conor was 1 fight away from a title shot, then maybe we'd be having a different conversation. But I really genuinely do not believe that at 155 or 170, especially 170, I don't know, either weight class, he's going to have to win 2 fights, dude. He's going to have to win 2 fights. He really is. And the thing is, it doesn't really matter because Conor's going to sell 1.5 pay-per-views anyway. Doesn't matter who he fights. If he fights against Bobby Green, they have that buildup, and then he wins, dude, he's going to sell out the next one for 1,000% sure. He's going to sell out that one. You think I'm not going to that fight? Let me just make this perfect. You think I'm not, I will, fights like that, I'm going, dude. I'm going. I'm still actually trying to figure out if I'm going to go to Masvidal and Colby. We're like a little bit up in the air about that one, but I'm hooked again. Like I'm going to fights. Like I'll go to five a year probably now, you know. It's really interesting because it's like I was just telling this to someone where just because of this channel, it's like, so I'm like sitting in my seat and someone rolled up, you know, and they were like, Jesse, what's up, man? I love your channel. I was like, what's up, man? Like, nice to meet you. And then Bisbin came by and was like, what's up? He's like, hey, is this your wife? And the people who are sitting in my row, the guy's like, he's like, well, you're lucky because I have no idea who you are. And I was like, there's no reason you would know who I am, man. You know, like they thought I was like, they thought they were like sitting next to like a movie star or something. I'm like, yeah, no. I'm like, dude, I have like a small YouTube channel, man. Like there's no reason that you would know who I am. But it's funny, like, you know, I don't know. I'm going to just like, for me, because the people who watch my channel are all fucking cool. Like everybody, I have not met a person who's approached me and been like, hey, I like your channel that I didn't like. You know, like I've been like, oh, I would hang out with this guy anyway. And I think that's just because we all share this common interest, this personality type. Like, you know, it's a personality type. If you love UFC, probably going to get along with another person who loves UFC. But like, if you think about what that would be like if you were famous for some other reason, it's just a bunch of like, you know, like there's no like commonality in the people that roll up on you. You're like at the grocery store and it's just like, you know, people you would never hang out with. That would be weird. Cause I like it. You know, it's like you already know the only reason you would watch my channel is if you're a fucking MMA fan, and you're at a fucking MMA show. So the thing that I love most in the world is probably the thing you love most in the world, which means we cool, man. We cool. But it's fun. So we're going to go to a lot of events and, yeah, no one is like, if you ever see me at an event, you are never bothering me, dude. As a matter of fact, if you see me anywhere, you're not bothering me, dude. You can definitely come up and say what's up because I just assume we have a lot in common. So please do that. We'll take a picture or whatever. Anyway, that is what I got. So subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. Peace.